Good evening. I'd like to call the Am we here? Yep. Yeah, there we go. Sorry. We're dealing with some glitches first time in the new location. So good evening. I'd like to call the January 21st Board of Education Workshop Ethics Special Action Meeting to order. I'm going to now call on Dr. Schwartz, who's going to say a few words and dedicate our moment of silence to a community member. Thank you, Dr. Schwartz.
Switch. There's a switch.
Good evening, and thank you so much for inviting me to do this. I did confirm with the family, and they are very grateful. They did not want to come this evening. But as we begin tonight's meeting, I would like to take a moment to honor and remember our Aptua student, Julian, who recently passed away after a courageous and prolonged battle with cancer. Julian was a first grader in our district, and though his time with us was far too brief, his impact on our school community will never be forgotten. The Aptua community is deeply grateful for all the support everyone has shown through this difficult time of grief and loss. At this time, I ask that we pause for a moment of reflection to hold Julian, his family, and all those who loved him in our hearts and thoughts. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Schwartz. Sorry. So the Open Public Meeting Act, in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings, oh, I'm sorry, the flag salute. After we found the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now to the Open Public Meetings Act. In accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, public notice of this meeting has been sent to board members, all district schools, the Herald News, the Suburban Trends, the Record, the Messenger, West Milford Town Hall, the County Superintendent's Office, the Board Attorney, Cablevision of Warwick and West Milford TV 77, and posted in the Administration Building. Copies of the board meeting calendar resolution were provided to all local media, Town Hall, Township Library, and all district schools. Roll call, please, Mr. Schultz.
Mr. Sitovich?
Here.
Mrs. Dwyer? Mrs. Jurgensen? Mr. Lippy?
Yes.
Mrs. Lockwood?
Here.
Mrs. Marquardt?
Here.
Mrs. Ricano?
Here.
Mrs. Van Dyke?
Here.
Mr. Carino?
Here.
Thank you. Superintendent's report, Dr. Kitchen?
Yes, just one quick reminder and then something exciting for this evening. So first I want to remind everyone that kindergarten registration is now open. It opened earlier today. It has been advertised in the paper. It has been advertised on our website, and more information will continue to get pushed out to make sure that we are getting all of our kindergartners registered. I know we've had this conversation before, but it is really, really important not only that we open registration early, but that we're really pushing to encourage people to register in that early time frame, because that has a huge impact on our scheduling and our budgeting for understanding number of sections. You get a lot of late kindergarten registrations, and when that happens, all of a sudden you start to have numbers that may require additional sections, and it's nice to know that information in advance. So that's where we're at with that. And then the next thing for my report, I'm going to be turning it over to our individual principals, because we are going to be doing our recognition for our Governor's Educator of the Year and our Educational Services Professionals of the Year for each of our schools. This is something that the state does in each district. Not all districts participate, but many do, and this is something that for the past few years has kind of gone away in the district. We're really, really excited to bring it back. It's been a great honor for me to go around and meet some of our really dedicated educators in this district, and Mr. Novak and I had the chance to kind of go around and congratulate everyone, and super excited to recognize all of them here, because these are some of the best educators we have to offer. So without further ado, I'm going to bring our principals up. We're going to start with Mr. Kane. He has a family commitment following this, so he was kind enough to make time for us this evening. We're going to let him come up first and honor his recipient.
All right. Good. All right. So it is my pleasure tonight to recognize a couple of amazing educators. Start off with Mrs. Beth Schaefer, our Maple Road School Teacher of the Year. This is the second time in the last decade that Mrs. Beth Schaefer, aka Miss Beth, has been selected as our Maple Road School Teacher of the Year. That consistent recognition from her peers and school community members reflects the consistent excellence that Beth brings to school each day. She approaches each school day with an unwavering commitment to do all that she can to support her preschool students and help them grow. Beth teaches our developmental and inclusion preschool classes at Maple Road School. Over a decade ago, she helped launch our inclusion preschool program and has helped the program grow and thrive over the last several years. In her preschool classes, Beth develops a student-centered learning environment rooted in centers-based instruction that allows for high levels of differentiation and individualized student support and growth. Many of her preschool activities are hands-on, creating a climate of discovery and wonder among her young learners. Her preschool classroom is filled with music, learning, and laughter, and often reminds me of the old television series, The Magic Garden. Beth is the consummate professional and approaches all aspects of her professional practice with grace and compassion. She is truly a teacher leader. Her teaching colleagues, especially the other members of her preschool team, often seek her for advice and guidance. She is also actively involved in our school's character education activities and our community's Special Olympics programs. I could go on, but I will finish by saying that I am proud to work with Beth each day, and I am honored to be presenting her tonight as the Maple Road School Teacher of the Year.
Go, Miss Beth.
All right. All right, next up, Mrs. Gemma Song. Mrs. Song is a special class aide in our Klein preschool program and is the Maple Road School Educational Services Professional of the Year. I often refer to our Klein preschool staff as the hardest working people in show business because they help our youngest learners with some of the greatest needs. Gemma embodies the compassion, collaboration, and grit of our Klein preschool staff. She works tirelessly with her fellow preschool aides and the lead teacher to support the individual needs of her students. In Gemma's preschool class, we have had quite a bit of aide staff turnover this year, and at times, Gemma has been the glue that has held the classroom together. Most importantly, Gemma does all of this with a smile and a cheerful glint in her eye. She has a friendly word for everyone she meets and gets along with staff members and parents throughout the Maple Road School community. She has played an active role in several staff morale activities this year in an effort to spread joy to her colleagues. Gemma is a shining light in the Maple Road School community, and I am proud to present her this evening as the Maple Road School Educational Services Professional of the Year.
Miss Beth.
Up next, Dr. Schwartz for Ashua School.
It is my honor to introduce to you this year's Governor Teacher of the Year for Ashua School, Ms. Blake Visconti. I'm quite fortunate because not only do I get to work with Blake now, I got to work with Blake up at UGL as a colleague as well, so I can vouch for every bit of her. That is wonderful. Ms. Visconti is an outstanding educator who exemplifies dedication, skill, and a true passion for her students. She teaches special education at Ashua, where her commitment to fostering both academic and emotional growth in her students is truly unparalleled. In her resource room, Ms. Visconti creates a learning environment that is both nurturing and challenging. Her exceptional instructional practices are designed to meet the unique needs of each student, ensuring that every child can access the curriculum and thrive. Whether through differentiated instruction, individualized support, or hands-on activities, Ms. Visconti makes sure that all students are actively engaged and making progress. Her ability to adapt lessons, scaffold learning, and provide targeted interventions is a testament to her deep understanding of her students' needs and her dedication to their success. What makes Ms. Visconti particularly exceptional is her ability to work collaboratively with both students and staff. She partners seamlessly with her special class aide, ensuring each student receives the individualized support that they need. Her data-driven instruction tailors lessons to meet the unique needs of her students, and she keeps parents well-informed of children's progress. Ms. Visconti impacts extend beyond the classroom. She has taken on leadership roles in extracurricular activities, such as facilitating our SOARS Club and contributing to the District Literacy Committee. She consistently strives to improve her professional practices, incorporating new strategies and programs that benefit all students. Ms. Visconti is not only an outstanding teacher, but a true colleague and a true leader who enriches the lives of her students and our entire school community. Her dedication, creativity, and passion make her the perfect candidate for Teacher of the Year for the Alachua community. Ms. Visconti.
Up next, Mr. O'Donnell for Marshall Hill.
All right, so good evening, everybody. Tonight, I'll be recognizing both amazing educators and professionals in my building. Our Educator of the Year, Mrs. Chelsea Pyrus, and our Service Professional of the Year, Mrs. Maureen Kelly, both of whom I'm very happy to see have their daughters in attendance today. You guys should be very proud of your moms because they really are incredible. So we're going to start with Chelsea. As principal at Marshall, I've had the pleasure of supervising Ms. Pyrus for the past 6 years, and during that time, she has consistently demonstrated why she deserves this prestigious recognition. Ms. Pyrus is a dedicated and passionate teacher who consistently goes above and beyond to meet the diverse needs of her students. She's skilled at differentiating her lessons to accommodate various learning styles and abilities, and she assures that every student has the opportunity to showcase their individual talents. Her enthusiasm for teaching art is contagious, and she finds creative ways to engage her students, such as incorporating current trends like the viral ghost challenge into her lessons. Her bulletin board displays in our hallways always add more life and highlight the artistic abilities of our student population. And sometimes I'll catch her when she's putting them up, and when I ask her about them, she raves about her students and how hard they worked and how creative they were. You could just tell how proud she is of them. Beyond the classroom, Ms. Pyrus has become a leader in the district's art department, working collaboratively on events like Pinwheels for Peace, District Art Festival, Veterans Day activities, and you could go on and on. She has also developed an engaging Instagram page to showcase her students' artistic achievements, highlighting the success of her students and the positive impact of her teaching. For me, Chelsea, you absolutely deserve this recognition and all the honors in the future that come your way. Congratulations. All right, and now Maureen Kelly. So I've had the good fortune of being her direct supervisor for the past 4 years. And before I even met her,
I heard tales of how amazing she was. When she finally arrived, those tales had been proven true. I saw it firsthand with my own eyes. So while I unfortunately cannot take any credit for her success and how amazing she is, she was great before she even got to me. I'll absolutely take it as a win for the students of our Encore program. Her colleagues view her as a true professional. She's extremely flexible, a trait that benefits her in the crazy juggling that is the Encore program. Despite constant schedule changes, she's able to provide structure and routine to her students. Behaviors in her class are virtually non-existent, and she maintains such a calm, even, compassionate demeanor that she immediately wins over her students. She's constantly implementing new instructional strategies that she's picked up and is not afraid to try something new. She always has an eye on student achievement data and knows each of her students' profiles so well. She's very involved with the larger Marshall Hill community, stepping up to run one of our Eagle Scholars, that's our before and after school academic support program, as well as serve on various committees and be an advisor for TREPS. She's a critical part of our Marshall Hill community. I'm so thankful to work for her, and you are incredibly deserving of this opportunity.
He's a single picture first.
Next, Mrs. Miller for Paradise Knoll.
Hello, good evening. It is my extreme pleasure to talk about PK's Governor Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Jessica Cohen. She's here tonight with her husband and her oldest son, who, Benny, I've known your mom since you were in her belly, so a very long time now. It reminds me of how old I am when I see just how much Benny's grown over the years. Jess is a strong and talented first grade instructor who continuously improves her content knowledge across all subject areas, but particularly in her passion, phonics, as it relates to science of reading. Mrs. Cohen enthusiastically implements new strategies and techniques to her teaching all the time, as she's always learning and growing, learning more about improving her practice. Her professionalism and interactions with parents and her keen awareness of classroom dynamics allow her to effectively manage her students, providing them with the social and emotional support they need to be ready to learn. As a successful member of our district literacy committee, Mrs. Cohen played a crucial role in selecting the new district-wide reading program for this school year. Also during the third trimester last year, she piloted 2 new reading programs, all while ensuring there were no gaps in skills and concepts. Mrs. Cohen regularly presents to staff and her fellow teachers at professional development sessions. This year, she presented to her colleagues and to parents about our new ELA program, Wonders, with her district literacy committee colleagues. Mrs. Cohen is always looking to set professional goals for herself. She continues to aim to explore adjustments to her teaching and to learning for her students, demonstrating weaknesses or struggles. Furthermore, she's implementing the chosen ELA program with fidelity across the district, all while constantly supporting her colleagues with the implementation. Mrs. Cohen is a well-respected member of the Paradise Knoll staff. She's a member of our building-based character and ELA committees. She coordinates family math night, effectively managing almost the entire evening's activities. Additionally, she plays significant roles in planning and facilitating our family literacy nights. Mrs. Cohen attends PTA meetings. She collaborates with her colleagues, whether it's to perform in or host the PK Talent Show. You may have heard of her alter ego, DJ Crispy Cohen. She does this to support her young students in their performances. But also, Mrs. Cohen directed PK's first ever elementary school play that included approximately 100 kindergarten through 5th grade students. Thank you to those of you who were able to enjoy the performance of Frozen Jr. She is an active participant in our district-wide literacy committee, attending numerous meetings as well as demonstrations and workshops and trainings. Mrs. Cohen has become a valuable resource for her colleagues, ready to support them at any moment. Jess is truly deserving of this honor, as she is passionate, dedicated, and enthusiastic. She's always looking to provide more to her students, colleagues, Paradise Knoll, and the West Milford community. It is no surprise that we are here to recognize her as PK's Teacher of the Year. Congratulations. We do also have an ed services professional at PK. However, she's currently in the dental chair, I think, getting a root canal. I know she would much rather be here with us. Mrs. Zeitema, AKA Nurse Carol, is in her 3rd year as a school nurse at Paradise Knoll, and she is consistently excelling in this role. She actively engages in the health office, demonstrating her commitment to learning and growth. Nurse Carol asks insightful questions, seeks support as needed, and effectively collaborates with her nursing colleagues. Her nursing practices are safe, caring, and appropriate. Nurse Carol responds to the community's needs. She follows up with parents and students to address any health concerns that affect education and attendance. She personalizes her space by displaying artwork created by students over the past 2 years, making her office very inviting and relatable. She's active in the Paradise Knoll community. She frequently consults with her direct supervisor and colleagues to enhance the educational environment of our school. She's always available for students and staff, demonstrating a wealth of knowledge and a warm bedside manner that's comforting to all of our children. Her strong communication skills foster positive relationships with Paradise Knoll parents. Nurse Carol's positive attitude radiates throughout our building, and she goes above and beyond to care for those in need, whether it's offering a break in her office or providing support when someone is unwell. She consistently checks in on staff members to ensure their well-being, demonstrating her commitment to the entire Paradise Knoll family. Her cheerful personality, smile, and laughter uplift those around her. Nurse Carol deserves this recognition not only for her role as our school nurse, but also for her leadership, professionalism, and respect towards all individuals she interacts with. She's an invaluable addition to our Paradise Knoll community. Thank you.
Dr. Fowler for UGL.
Good evening. I am extremely honored and proud to be here tonight to present UGL's Teacher of the Year as well as Educational Services Professional of the Year. I'm going to start with our Teacher of the Year, and once again I'm completely honored to introduce Mrs. Holly Miller as UGL's Teacher of the Year. With a calm and professional demeanor, Mrs. Miller sets high standards for her students and serves as a role model and unofficial team lead for 5th grade. She has welcomed new members to her grade level team over the past few years and has spent her own time planning and sharing lessons and professional materials. Everyone is given a fair and equal opportunity to provide input and be on a level playing field with her. She has been in West Milford for about 7 years, and she is a dedicated teacher and senior member of our 5th grade team. I am honored to call her a part of my staff and wish her luck as she applies for County Teacher of the Year. One last fun fact, she was my first Secret Santa last year when I started at UGL. Again, congratulations, UGL's Teacher of the Year, Holly Miller. And finally, our Educational Services Professional of the Year. I'm proud to announce that Mrs. Kim Walker is our Educational Services Professional of the Year. Mrs. Walker is our reading specialist, and I can honestly say that in the 2 years that I've been with her, I have learned an immense amount about just reading in general, just how kids learn, and I learned this because she's part of our INRS and our 504 teams, and sitting in meetings with Mrs. Walker is like sitting in a college level class on what it is to be a reading specialist. She's just amazing. She's able to inspire both students and staff and is always willing to take time out of her own professional responsibilities to help both new and returning teachers. She goes the extra mile, covering classes when needed. She is just a wealth of knowledge, and I'm honored and just, I couldn't be happier for her. So congratulations, Mrs. Walker. Yeah.
Dr. Matlos from Academy.
Good evening, everyone. Kathy, Kathy Easter, ESP of the Year for Macmillan School. Want to do something a little different? I actually want to read the nomination form you received, of course, to our committee. Kathy is the most caring person I have ever met. Not only does she show her care to all our students, she always makes sure to check in with teachers on how they're feeling. And if they need anything at all. During class, Kathy takes no breaks. During downtime, she asks students about their lives and interests. Everyone leaves Kathy's presence feeling her joy. Kathy helps an array of classes, and she does her best to fully understand each lesson in order to help students. Math topics here are taught in very specific ways with manipulatives, and Kathy always makes sure to help students in the way we do in class. Instead of teaching them those old school methods, she ensures consistency and always open to learn. Kathy, the consistent theme that Macmillan School has heard over and over from your colleagues, everybody from the main office, second floor, first floor, you name it, is your smile. When you walk down the hallway, you're happy. I actually don't know if you actually have a bad day, seriously. But I think it's that presence that we all talk about, what makes you not just the ESP of the Year, but just one hell of a good Class 8. Thank you so much for being with us. Maccabee's Teacher of the Year, this is Jackie Siegel. Jackie, you still here? Oh, there you go. In short, Jackie Siegel has blossomed to a very valuable and capable teacher. She is dedicated, involved, and caring, working as many after-school events as possible and creating widely innovative and engaging lessons and units for her students. She goes above and beyond and out of her way to include everyone and to help her staff with everything. With a passion for teaching that rivals even the most dedicated Hogwarts professor. She has created an environment where learning is magical and students feel empowered to explore their potential. Ms. Siegel has shown our students that they can be heroes in their own stories, just like Harry, Hermione, and Ron. Thank you, Ms. Siegel, for your hard work, creativity, and unwavering support of our students. We are so proud to have you as a part of our team. Thank you so much for allowing me to deliver things in your card to your class, especially chocolate frogs. I appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you McEvin's Teacher of the Year, Ms. Jackie Siegel.
Last but not least, math science with our high school.
I'm proud to present West Milford High School's Teacher of the Year, Heather Burns, and our Educational Service Professional, Ms. Dana Lambert. Mrs. Burns is truly an exceptional educator and deserving of being named West Milford High School's Teacher of the Year. Her dedication to our students extends far beyond the typical classroom setting. As a theater educator, Heather has created a vibrant and inclusive arts program that serves as a safe haven for all students regardless of their background or academic path. Under Heather's leadership, our theater arts program has flourished. She has transformed it from an extracurricular activity into a comprehensive program that now serves multiple levels of students, garnering numerous awards and accolades across New Jersey. Heather's dedication to her profession is unwavering. She not only teaches acting and theater skills, but also equips students with valuable technical expertise by involving them in all aspects of production, including sound, lighting, stagecraft, and stage management. This hands-on expertise has even launched some of our students into successful acting careers. Heather's impact on our school community extends beyond the stage. She fosters a sense of belonging and safety for all students, creating a diverse and inclusive environment where students from all academic and social backgrounds feel valued and respected. The Theater Arts program has become a true beacon of inclusivity, successfully integrating students with special needs into our program. Thank you, Heather Burns. Dana Lambert is an outstanding school counselor whose dedication to students' success is truly remarkable. Her in-depth knowledge of post-secondary options is unparalleled, cultivated through extensive professional development and tireless exploration of colleges and universities across the country. Dana constantly seeks out the most up-to-date information on college admission trends and best practices in school counseling. Beyond her expertise, Dana is a passionate advocate for all students, particularly those from underrepresented groups. She's a founding member of Rainbow Key, a vital organization that provides crucial support and resources for LGBTQIA students in their post-secondary planning. Dana's commitment to inclusivity and equity shines through in her work with all students, including those with special needs, first-generation college students, and English language learners. Dana's impact on our students is immeasurable. Her tireless efforts to organize events like college fairs and the highly successful on-site Decision Day program provide invaluable opportunities for students to connect with colleges and build meaningful relationships with admission officers. Dana's dedication to ensuring that all students have the support and resources they need to achieve their post-secondary goals is truly inspiring. West Milford High School is very proud of our educational service professional, Ms. Dana Lambert. Thank you.
If we could do one last picture with all of our recipients this evening and the board, and then following that, we'll take a brief pause while we set up for our ethics and HIV training with Mr. Nash. Mr. Nash, I apologize. I knew how great of educators they all were. I underestimated how long it would take us to talk about them. We also underestimated the number of chairs that we needed for all of you to come and support, so our apologies. But one quick picture, and then I'm sure most of you are here for this portion, and as much as I'm sure you'd love to hear Mr. Nash's presentation, we'll take a brief pause if you'd like to step out and enjoy the rest of your evening elsewhere. So, come on up, we'll do a picture all together.
No, I'm not my mom.
A lot of people come from the north.
Principals, come on up.
Those which principals?
In the back with the big
Can I get you to take the picture first?
We should be at the back. No. Should we squat?
Hi, everyone. All right, 3, 2, 1.
Got it?
Thank you, everyone.
I'd like to call the meeting.
Okay, now we're good.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kitchen, and everyone that left. Special reports and correspondence, Mr. Schultz.
I don't have anything for approval tonight, but for the next meeting, I'll have the December 17th workshop and regular meeting minutes, the executive session minutes, and the January 2nd, 2025 reorg minutes. I'll have that at next week's meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Schultz. President's report, I have nothing to report on today. Public comments. Is there anyone, so public comment is on agenda items only. Is there anyone wishing to speak?
I didn't take that many pictures of my wedding. Oh, God. You always want to speak.
Okay, seeing no one, could I have a motion to close public comments?
Motion to close public comments?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and next would be Mr. Nash with our ethics presentation. Welcome, Mr. Nash. Sorry for the wait.
That's all right. Thank you. I might not need a microphone since I'm talking to you. I was very excited for a moment when I saw so many people. I thought they wanted to know about school ethics. But thank you for having me in. It's wonderful to be here with you. Wonderful to have a chance to talk together. Quick introduction. I am Director of Legal Education and National Outreach for the Foundation for Educational Administration. That's the sister organization to the New Jersey Principals and Supervisors Association. So it was wonderful seeing all of your great school principals and to just hear some of the amazing things that are happening. I spent many years working as legal counsel for the Principals Association and represented school administrators when legal issues came up related to their employment. As I did that work, it occurred to me it's nice to help people before they're in trouble. So I moved into the legal education realm to work with school districts across the city. So it's wonderful to be here with you. I'm going to walk through both school ethics issues that we should all think about and harassment, intimidation, and bullying issues. Here's my standard disclaimer. I have to do this. I'm not technically giving you legal advice. I'm giving you information. Of course, you rely on your board attorney for legal advice. But please jump in, ask questions as we go. If you have something on your mind, I'm sure it will help others as well. And all of you have access to this PowerPoint, so very happy for you to use any of this and turnkey it any way you think might be helpful. So as we're talking about school ethics, I think it's just important to begin with sort of the basics, the role of the Board of Education. And it was probably an eternity ago, but I did spend 6 years as a school board member, so I've been in your shoes. I hate to admit it, that was 30 years ago. So not exactly your shoes. Our world has changed in the last 30 years. But it is an incredibly important role. I think we would all agree that community engagement and helping to promote that is a huge part of that role. Communicating vision and goals for the district is very important. Doing what we have to do to promote a safe, supportive environment for everyone is huge. But then you get into the nitty-gritty of specific functions that you have as board members. Developing policy is a huge part of the job. Of course, the budget and struggling with state aid or the lack thereof is a huge part of what we need to do. Curriculum, staffing, oversight. Those really are core functions of being a school board. And it's important as we think about the ethics piece to always remember you really want to think of all of you as a collective body. Sometimes when folks are first elected to a school board, there's this sense of what is my individual role, and all of you have an incredibly important role to discuss these huge issues, but the authority is when you all come together. And that's always important to remember. The authority is as a full board. The community might not always know that. And it's important to sometimes educate those in the community about what you can do as individual board members versus collectively as a board. So just to sort of get us started on the school ethics conversation, a quick hypothetical. What if a board member or president takes it upon himself or herself to stop someone from presenting at a board meeting because of their extreme political views? Any thoughts on whether that would be appropriate for a board member?
For the board member to say it? I don't think it would be up to the president. If that's the question, not the board member.
Good. So one point is that at a board meeting, if there was going to be someone saying, perhaps you crossed the line, board president, superintendent, board attorney, it makes much more sense for those individuals to make those statements. But sort of getting to the heart of this question.
I don't think we can stop them.
Okay. Right? I mean, freedom of speech, First Amendment is a core foundational principle of our nation. We're really not going to be able to say no, unless, of course, even freedom of speech has its limits, right? If you say something that sounds like you're threatening to others, or inciting others to riot, or just create a dangerous situation, that's different. What about responding on the spot to somebody who you think has just given a lot of misinformation and attempting to set the record straight?
Don't think so. That's not our job.
Yeah, that's not the time and place, right? So certainly it might make sense, depending on what the issue is, if there is some basic misunderstanding for superintendent to address an issue. Oftentimes it makes sense to address the issue after the fact, to listen to what the community is saying, to understand what the perceptions are, not necessarily to be drawn into debate on those issues. And as we talk about school ethics, avoiding that sort of impromptu back and forth helps avoid ethics issues that we'll talk about. Commenting on what a speaker is saying in a manner that's critical of the superintendent or other employees. So somebody gets up and they're saying things that are critical of superintendent or district administrators or others. What about the idea of a board member agreeing with that?
Well, it's fine with the superintendent.
I can say I'm a new guy, so
It actually depends on the superintendent.
Depends on the superintendent. That's the most honest answer I've ever had in this training. Not the time and place.
kidding, right?
Right.
Can I actually circle back to the one before that? I have
Yes.
a question about it. So, in terms of setting the record straight or responding on the spot, is it appropriate for superintendent, president, possibly attorney, kind of sitting at that table to sort of confirm, decide, should we respond to this now?
Yes.
Because that's typically how we've handled it here. It's been my experience in the past as well, where we'll kind of decide, like, is this something we want to address? We may decide, thank you for your comment, and move on. Reach out to us and we can clarify, or we may choose to respond. But just want to make sure it's appropriate for us to be able to have that sidebar to say, should we respond to this now?
Perfectly appropriate. It makes sense, right? Some things are easy to correct, and it's just an honest misunderstanding. Others could be much more complicated, right? And the last thing you want to do is start getting into sort of heated, angry exchanges back and forth. But yes, sometimes it makes a lot of sense to do that. So what about a board member who directs that specific actions be taken? Somebody has said there is an unsafe condition on one of our athletic fields, and a board member turns to the superintendent and says, you need to be out there tomorrow morning making sure that is correct and fixed. What about that?
No. I think that's going to be a no.
Yeah.
Because that sounds like administering.
Right.
Right?
We're government sport now.
Yes. So, perfectly understandable to have that concern. Now, of course, when you have those concerns as board members, you're going to hear things from the community. It's inevitable in your role. To bring those to the superintendent and say, I'm hearing this concern, can you please address this issue, is perfectly appropriate. And that's sort of an important part of being a board member, to be that connection and to convey concerns from the community.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be in the public eye.
That's right.
Yep.
That's exactly right. In the public eye now, it looks like you're being critical of the employee and engaging in evaluation that we should argue with the presenter. Not a great strategy. It's not illegal, but it's easy to be drawn into a conversation that could cross ethics lines. Arguing with other board members, not illegal, but it's easy to perhaps say something that you can't take back. So it's just important to take a moment and think through whether it's the right time and place. Good case to learn from. This was 2010. This was a case, West Windsor Plainsboro School District. There was a parent who was furious, who felt that a particular coach had not been very fair to his daughter as an athlete. And this parent made it his business to come to meeting after meeting to convince the district they should fire this particular coach. After this person had come to their 6th or 7th meeting, the board president was a little bit exhausted and decided that we've heard this over and over again, and decides after a minute or so to cut that person off, or less than 30 seconds, to cut that person off. We've heard this a million times before. Do you have anything else you want to talk about besides this one issue? And stops the person. That same board president had allowed others to speak between 7 and 12 minutes on various topics. That parent was furious, sued the district, and said, you violated my First Amendment rights, and was successful. And one of the things that the board tried to say was that you can't sue us. If anyone can get sued, you can sue that board president who was a rogue board president, but you can't sue us as a district. We're not responsible for what the board president said, and the court disagreed. When the board president acts and does something inappropriate and it's allowed to stand at a meeting, the district is answerable for what has happened. So again, taking the time to think through what would be a better strategy. So there are other things that you probably do. You might say at the start of a meeting, please comment on agenda items only. Okay? And other topics you can raise at the end of a meeting. Again, obviously, if somebody, again, is saying something threatening or harassing, those are limits that can be set. But you really can't decide, I don't want to listen to this person at yet another meeting because they've said the same thing.
We have a regulation that's printed on our agenda that kind of covers a lot of these things and kind of gives the public an idea of why we might not respond, because what was happening for years is that people would just not respond and it looked like we were ignoring what they had to say.
That's so important, right? You need that trust from your community, you need understanding from the community, so taking the time to let folks understand why you might not be responding. And frankly, you have rules that other elected officials don't have. So people might be used to how a council operates or how other governing bodies operate, and you have other considerations that they don't have. It's important to educate folks. So these are just some of the things that you certainly can appropriately do. Have bylaws to govern how long individuals speak for, limit time of speakers. You also, you might have a particular amount of time that you give speakers, and then you have 150 people show up who all want to speak. Normally you give everybody 3 minutes, that's not going to work when you have 150 people in the room. So as long as you're even-handed, you can set reasonable limits that might be different from your typical limits, depending on how many people are there. So school official ethics, a few things that are pretty straightforward. You shouldn't be acting in any way that is in conflict with the Board of Education. One way that has sometimes happened, individual board members who often are parents in the community might have a dispute about an issue and how their child is being handled in a particular matter. If that board member decides to sue the district as a parent, there's a conflict of interest. And we've seen that. So that can be a little bit frustrating. At that point, our state has said you need to make a choice. You can certainly do that but you can't do that and be a board member. Even in the area of special education, if you decide to pursue due process claims, at that point, there would be a conflict. So certainly we want to recognize those potential conflicts that could exist. New Jersey has very strong nepotism regulations that are in effect that prohibit the hiring of relatives. It's a very broad term, relatives of board members or chief school administrator, superintendent. Of course, if when you were elected, there were already relatives in the district, they don't have to resign. That's perfectly appropriate. But any new hiring would not be permissible at that point. And if there were existing relatives under the ethics rules, at that point you would need to recuse yourself from any discussion about those individuals or any potential promotions for those individuals. So you want to be careful about the nepotism rules. You can see how broadly we define relative for that purpose. So we've got nieces, nephews, grandparents, grandkids, in-laws, step-parents, half-brothers, half-sisters, or the spouse of a relative. So it's a very broad term for the nepotism regulations.
Can I ask a question on that one?
Please.
So, as I'm sure you're aware, the applicant pool for many positions in many districts has been shrinking over the past few years. So let's say, for example, there was a position where we only had one applicant and they happened to be a relative of a board member, and you're not choosing that person over somebody else, but would that be something, it's not a situation we're in, but I could see that being, a situation that could exist. Are there circumstances where you could hire a relative of a board member if that was clearly the best option for the district, or perhaps the only option for the district, and how would you go about it?
The rules have been very unforgiving on that issue. I have not seen that allowed. The way you would attempt to go about it would be to petition the School Ethics Commission in advance, and they can issue what are called advisory opinions.
Okay.
So before you go ahead and do the thing that becomes an ethics violation, laying it out to the Ethics Commission and say, could we do this?
Yeah.
That's the approach you'd want to take, but I have not seen that particular scenario permitted.
Let's hope we don't find ourselves in that situation.
Yeah.
If a board member resigns, though.
Well, that's
then
the
other option.
That's the option.
Like with the parent, when wants to sue the school district, it's also the board member.
Yes, which is unfortunate, but that is sort of the option that we know is permissible in that situation. Of course, the ethics rules say we shouldn't be trying to secure any sort of unwarranted benefits for others, whether they're family members or not. So the ethics rules also would apply if we were to pressure the district to hire your best friend who is not qualified for the position, right? It's not just relatives. It's securing unwarranted advantages. So that part is broad. School officials include school board members and school administrators as well. So you want to understand that the ethics law does cover all school administrators, not just board members. So if you're not sure, again, advisory opinions. If you're not sure whether something might violate the rules, the option of asking for an advisory opinion, I think, is a good thing to do. We do have a school ethics commission that, is quite active. There are a large number of ethics complaints and issues that are raised each year, and it does make sure that all of those are addressed. And the various sanctions that are available range from a reprimand through removal of a board member, which is exceedingly rare, but it's happened a few times. Even in some cases, fines if somebody is in bad faith bringing an ethics complaint, where there's clearly no legitimate basis for that issue. So, we've seen sort of the gamut of potential responses. So, the ethics rules for board members, common sense things. The idea is to not surrender your judgment to special interests or partisan groups, not use the schools for personal gain, maintain confidentiality. This one is incredibly challenging. You, by the nature of your role, get a lot of very confidential information about students. There is an HIV issue that is being addressed, and you have to vote to affirm, reject, or modify the result. You might have questions, and in closed session, you get some pretty detailed information about that issue. There's federal law, in addition to the ethics rules, that say you can't share that information with others. And that can be frustrating sometimes for the community. So educating community members that, this is confidential information. I only know it because I'm a board member. And that's a good way to think about that issue. Do I know this because I'm a board member? And the minute we say yes, and it is something confidential about that individual student, we can't share that information. Same thing is true if you're talking about a particular staff member. Maybe there's a concern about a staff member's performance. There's potential litigation, potential tenure charges. You're discussing that in closed session. Community members might be interested about that conversation and what was said. And that's not something you're allowed to discuss with the community. I think the last one here is so important. As we said, you're going to get complaints, of course, and concerns from the community, directing those to the superintendent. And the ethics rules do say if you ever had a superintendent who completely ignored you and just looked the other way and didn't respond, well, now the board can be more proactive on that issue. But we almost never see that where there's a response.
I have a question. When you were talking about the HIPs, is there a program or something that we could do in educating our parents? Because I think we don't, that's where we lose some of the...
It's a great question. We do this quite often. We have what we call a parent university. So, I'm doing for several other districts a series of evening webinars for parents, virtual webinars. And I think that's really valuable. We have found that Zoom or other virtual sessions are much more effective. You get much larger response than asking folks to come out. And they also can be recorded and be put out there for the community.
Because that's where you get into the tit for tat kind of thing, and I'm wondering if that's because, it is good to educate our parents about what's going, because we need the education on the HIB itself, but it's important that parents understand that even though it may be unsubstantiated, we're not saying that something didn't happen.
That's exactly right. So letting parents know that you're taking the issue very seriously. New Jersey has a very technical definition of bullying. It's probably not the definition that any of us would have thought of, but there it is. We've got a law that says this is how we define harassment, intimidation, and bullying. So helping parents understand that, understanding the difference between bullying and conflict, huge issue, right? So that's something that we can definitely help with. So a few examples of ethics rules that have, or issues that have come up over the years. Hiring personnel without any recommendation from the superintendent is a no-no. Right? Violates the ethics. We see this in a few cases. Calling an administrator in the evening and demanding reports because you're not sure you're getting straight information from the superintendent is also not the way to address a concern. If there is a legitimate concern about the information you're getting, working through the full board, talking with the superintendent, documenting the concern is what you should do. Meeting privately with the police chief because you don't think that a senior prank incident was handled well is going beyond the role of a school board member. That same board member sent out letters to fellow board members criticizing the principal for how she had handled a senior prank incident and trying to convince the other board members to not give this particular principal tenure. That is a violation of the Ethics Act, and it also is something that violates the Open Public Meetings Act. Those emails back and forth, which are perfectly understandable, I think that's how we all communicate these days. You can accidentally have a board meeting, even if it's not a single email to a majority of the board. If you were to email one board member, that board member emails another board member, who emails another board member, and effectively you make a decision on an issue, that would be a violation of the Open Public Meetings Act, even though it was a rolling set of emails that we saw. So you want to be careful about those sorts of things. Using the district email to seek political contributions clearly violates the Ethics Act. Developing and mandating the use of specific interview questions because you don't think the district's doing a very good job of how they conduct interviews is trying to administer the district. Sending an email demanding explanation for the handling of the refusal of students to stand for the national anthem and trying to personally investigate that issue, again, not the role of board members. Trying to intimidate union members, in addition to being an ethics violation, was found to be an unfair labor practice, where we saw that in the case. That was a little bit surprising because some folks thought that since it wasn't also an ethics issue, that PERC wouldn't have any standing, but it was both. So you want to recognize that. Here we go. Tricky issue. Board member at a board meeting during the period where folks were wearing masks decided to wear a mask with a rainbow flag on it. Another board member thought that was an inappropriate political message and did file an ethics complaint against the board member who wore that mask. The Ethics Commission did rule that that was not an ethics violation because it was basically anchored in human rights and trying to signal that the school district is a safe, affirming environment for all students. It wasn't against anyone. It was signaling affirmation and support. And we've seen that in a number of cases where there were complaints against staff members as well. So if what you're doing is signaling in a classroom or at a board meeting that this is a safe, affirming environment, that has been found to be perfectly acceptable.
What if it was a more direct political statement, like a mask with a candidate's name on it, or a shirt with a candidate's name?
Clearly inappropriate. Right, and we've seen those too. So lots of creative use of masking when we were dealing with that. Advisory opinions. Again, this is a tool that not many districts use, but I would suggest doing it. This was a case where the board asked, would we violate the ethics rules if we refuse to implement New Jersey's health and physical education standards? Because we don't really like those standards, and we don't think we should implement those standards as written. So an advisory opinion was issued. It wasn't written quite as clearly as I wish it had been, but it basically said you could be setting the district up, and the district would very likely be violating the law by refusing to implement the standards, and the individual board members may be violating the ethics rules. So they weren't definitive on the individual board members, but they were definitive on the school district being a violation of state law. Now, we have seen that in a few cases where there were concerns about particular New Jersey standards, and in some cases refusal to adopt them, or sort of changing the rules of those standards. So for example, with the health standards we have in place, parents can opt out if they have a concern. This particular district wanted to change the rules so that you didn't get the health standards unless a parent opted in. And that would be rewriting state law, not something that can do. Social media. I used to do training that said just don't go on social media, but nobody listened to that training. So I've sort of given up on that message. People are going to go on social media, so I understand that. So a few examples. We had a board member make an anti-Muslim comment. It was a particular comment that a board member made. The board member said, I wasn't talking about anyone in the school district. I wasn't targeting, any other staff members or students. I was just expressing a political view. School Ethics Commission said those kinds of comments could undermine the faith of the community in the school district. So that's where you want to keep in mind that as a citizen, there are lots of things that you could say on social media, but are you undermining public confidence in the school district by making those comments? Emails. An email to a parent that was critical of an employee under investigation, not appropriate. Just like a public comment critical of that employee also wouldn't be appropriate. Email to the legislature against a mask mandate, if it's written in a way that leaves the impression that you're speaking for the district when you're not. That's what we saw in this case.
From their district email?
Yes. From the district email suggesting that this was how the district felt on the issue, and it was an individual board member's view of that issue. So you want to be really clear on disclaimers if you are speaking as an individual and not as a board member. And the U.S. Supreme Court has said that's very important to protect your First Amendment rights, because a lot of people know you're board members. So making clear when you're speaking as an individual citizen. Another board member used their board member email to set up a meeting at his private tutoring company. You can't make these things up? Not okay, right? U.S. Supreme Court did lay out a test. Now this test really dealt with whether your comments as an individual board member could lead to a civil rights lawsuit against the school district. So the ethics rules are broader than this, but I think it's still an important case. If you are saying things publicly on social media and you have actual authority to speak on the district's behalf, it's the state's behalf, but on the district's behalf, so you're the board president, where in some cases you do have authority to speak. And it looks like you're exercising that authority. Now you have an issue where you could make the district liable if you're saying things that undermine civil rights. So the actual authority, could be something that's established through statute, ordinance, regulation. And again, there's a few areas where board president conferring with the superintendent have some specific authority to deal with emergency situations. The U.S. Supreme Court did talk about some other language where perhaps you're so persistently creating the perception in the community that you have authority that might be enough for the district to be liable. So you just want to, again, think carefully about what you put out there on social media. One piece I'll mention, well, I'll do it through this scenario. This is a nice transition from ethics into the harassment, intimidation, and bullying piece. So there's a non-tenured middle school principal, Mr. No Waves. He's informed that Jason, a 7th grader and son of the board president, is accused of bullying another student. He directs the anti-bullying specialist to start an investigation, contacts the parents, including the board president, Mr. Protective. The next morning, the board president comes to visit the school at 8 a.m. and asks to immediately meet with Mr. No Waves to discuss the incident. He says he has critical information the principal needs to hear right away. Any concerns yet with this scenario?
I would be concerned that he didn't make an appointment and go through the proper channels
Okay.
as a parent, not as a board president, and that he didn't say he was the board president and that he should be seen.
Okay, so going through the proper channels. Now, do other parents sometimes say, I need to speak to the principal immediately? Yes. Okay, sure. So there is some triage that we do have to go through. I haven't given you the rest of the scenario yet, but it's possible that there is.
Time is of the essence scenario?
Ultimately, you'll see it's not. If it was, that would.
The more gray area.
Yes.
But as a board president, shouldn't you know the channels more than the average parent?
You should. Yes,
Okay, I
you
mean,
should.
We hear about him all the time.
Of course, of course. So
Remember, you have their parental rights.
you never surrender.
No, I wouldn't say that you give up your rights, but I think you should follow the rules, that you should be better at following those rules. Sometimes I know in the heat of whatever's going on, it's easy to understand that, but also to understand why you might be, like the superintendent might say, well, we have to follow the chain of command and do
Yes.
what needs to be done.
Absolutely.
Right.
So I'll give you a little more information in this scenario. Principal says he'd be happy to schedule a time to meet later that day. The board member responds, this can't wait. You know me. I understand better than anyone how busy you are. I wouldn't ask to meet right away if it could wait. Principal reluctantly agrees to the meeting. They go behind closed doors. Board president explains that he's running for re-election and his opponent has been looking for dirt on him.
Well, here it is.
Surprise!
And that if he finds out about the bullying allegation against his son, that'll become public fodder in order to embarrass him. He says, it won't be good for me, but I'm really worried about how it will impact my son. He shouldn't pay a price just because I'm a board member. As he's getting up to leave, Mr. Protective tells the principal how impressed he is with Mr. No Wave's political acumen and ability to quietly handle issues that could be explosive. He knows that's the kind of skill set that a good principal needs. As our board president violated the ethics. Pretty clear. So this is a not so subtle example. Keep in mind, right, that you don't have lesser rights as a parent, and there could be those urgent situations, just like any parent, where you really need to speak to that principal right away. But you always want to ask yourself that question. Is this one of those urgent situations, or should I go through the normal course, just like any other parent would? And sometimes it's not so easy to be objective, because if the issue involves your child, it always feels urgent. Right? probably this isn't something that had to happen that second, and it shouldn't have happened at all, this particular meeting. So, whoops.
I kind of think it's your gut reaction to do that as a parent first.
Yes.
And then a
But
board
this
member.
particular case wasn't a gut reaction.
No,
about the
no,
child.
no, 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 and
That's
I
right.
understand that, but I'm saying like you're, you know.
In many
your
cases
instincts
with-
are telling you, you gotta protect, you know, I'm a
Yes.
mama bear, I wanna protect her.
Of course, of course. Quick review of New Jersey's definition of bullying. This is obviously not word for word, but key points. Could happen anywhere. You know, keep that in mind. Could be a single incident. We think of bullying as a pattern of behavior. It doesn't have to be. New Jersey says we have to figure out the motive. And that can sometimes frustrate people, right? One student hits another on the playground. If we can't figure out why, then it can't be labeled as harassment, intimidation, or bullying. Doesn't mean that you ignore it. Getting that message across to parents is important too. But in order for it to be HIB, you need to know the characteristic. You are looking through the eyes of the alleged victim. What is that student perceiving? Why do they think they were targeted? And then asking, was that a reasonable perception? I think there's good reason that our state has said do it that way. Because if you did it the other way and tried to get into the mind of the aggressor, what do students often say when they're accused of doing something? I was just kidding. I didn't mean it. If that defense worked, an awful lot of things could happen that students wouldn't be able to count for, right? So you're looking through the eyes of the victim and what they're perceiving. It does have to be something that causes substantial disruption or interference with rights of a student. So sometimes there's an issue that happens between two students. 5 minutes later, they're laughing, they're playing together, they're just fine. But the parents are furious. And the parents might not let it go for the rest of the school year. But the students have moved on. So the test is there a major change from the student's baseline? That's what you're looking for bullying. And the same behavior that could be incredibly upsetting for one student might roll off another student's back. And that student might not think twice about it. Doesn't mean the behavior is okay, but in order for it to be bullying, you need impact that is beyond just that moment.
So it could be the same type of incident, and one could be a hit and one could not.
Yes, I'll give you an example. There was a case involving a school spirit day. Students were asked to wear school colors. One of the school colors happened to be yellow. Student comes into school who didn't wear yellow. The student was Asian. Another student says to him something very hurtful, I can't believe you're not wearing yellow, you're Asian, you're always yellow. Wildly inappropriate. The parent finds out that comment was made, files a bullying complaint, district investigates, determines it did happen, concludes it's not bullying. Because for that student, the parent was furious, but the student didn't think twice. I'm fine. There was no evidence of any change in demeanor. The student wasn't afraid to come to school. They were doing great academically. They were just as outgoing as they had been before the incident. So it was a code of conduct violation, but it was not bullying because it didn't cause substantial disruption for that student. For lots of other kids, that would have been devastating. Understandably so, right? And it would have been bullying. So that is not an easy part of the law to explain. Again, the behavior is never okay, but to be bullied, you have to have impact on the student.
Not to step on the toes of the presentation, but to give an example, and correct me if this is inaccurate, but what I have seen before is also a situation where there's multiple alleged aggressors, and while their actions may have been nearly identical in what they were doing, the alleged victim only perceived it to be a problem with this one individual and not the two others. So even though they were doing the same thing, you can have one bullying instance filed against 3 people and only one of them is founded, even if they're doing the exact same thing.
And that's hard to explain to parents as well.
Really hard to explain.
But you have to have the direct impact on the victim because of the aggressor. And now, the one time where the adults have to use their judgment is if a student, because of developmental delays, because of a student's disability, is unable to understand what is happening and the harm that's being done. But there is harm being done. So that would be the one time where the student might truthfully say, no, I'm not upset, but you're seeing that the student is now ostracized. You're seeing the impact as the adults, and that's where you could still find bullying. But typically, it has to be the student who is impacted. And you have to be able to identify exactly what the harm is. Could be physical, could be emotional, could be fear, could be that it was something demeaning to that student, or something that the student, now has a hostile environment in school. They really can't perform. They're failing where they were grade students. So you always want to have a clear harm to have bullying. Often what we find is conflict and not bullying, right? The incident that was reported is something that happened on a playground. The district investigates and finds out it's part of an ongoing conflict that's been going on for weeks. In isolation, the one-time incident looks like bullying, but what you really have going on many times is mutual engagement. And if you have mutual engagement, it's almost always conflict and not bullying. I say almost always because it's not just the number of comments, it's also the nature of the comments. So there was one example recently where you had two students sort of mocking each other because of their athletic ability. It was a conflict until one of the students decided to make all sorts of anti-Semitic comments. And what the commissioner said was, it's not just the number of comments, it's the nature of the comments as well. And that elevated it to an HIV issue. So, important to always look at context. Your role, just like in other areas, of course, starts with policy. Making sure that you have personnel who have the necessary resources and training. Most folks, when they completed their graduate programs, whether you're a school counselor or an administrator or a teacher, you didn't get much training on how to do an investigation. That's really not in much of what we see in our graduate work. But it's training that people need. So making sure that folks have that training. Conducting hearings if requested. One thing I would say about a hearing, if a parent asks for one, you obviously want to give that parent every opportunity to tell you, why they disagree with the outcome of the investigation. So I would not create a stringent time limit on a parent. Well, you have 5 minutes in closed session, and whatever you can say in 5 minutes, that's a mistake. But I also think it's a mistake for the parent to be allowed to start cross-examining staff members. Some districts actually have allowed that. What you have every right to do, if a parent is raising a lot of issues that you want more information on, you have a right in closed session, after that parent leaves that closed session, to still gather more information and have your questions answered. Because there is the potential for litigation. So it's perfectly appropriate for you to do that. I'm not sure you want all of that to play out in front of the parent. So that's your judgment, but probably a more efficient process for you to take in the concerns and then have the ability to ask whatever follow-up you need.
But if a parent comes to us after we have voted to substantiate or unsubstantiate, and they want to appeal it to us, then can we take the information in as, like they've had, we
You already voted.
yeah, and we dealt with the HIB on the validity of what was put before us, and now we're taking it back.
So what's interesting, in New Jersey law, it doesn't make as much sense as it should. I'll say that. So don't shoot the messenger, but parents have 60 days to ask for a hearing, which means there's a chance they wait and ask for the hearing after you have voted. Okay. Oftentimes they'll ask for the hearing before you vote, which is the better process, so that you can hear whatever the concerns are, but it might come afterwards. And then you still have to give them that hearing. And if some new information comes out when you have that closed session hearing, it's possible the district might have to reopen the investigation if there was something new that hadn't been heard before.
Does
So-
it go down a wormhole then with the other parent, that's what,
There's always the potential that, Matt, if you do overturn a decision, the other parent has rights too. And the other parent could then challenge that new decision that's been reached. So both parents have rights.
how long can that go on?
That's a good question.
Like, where does the line get drawn? Because we keep pushing 60 days?
The way it goes, it stops once you are no longer getting new information. There has to be some new piece of information that wasn't already reviewed. That's the key.
With the original HIB, or the original potential HIB, or new information on new things that may have occurred since the original incident.
Either, right? So certainly it could be a new witness who comes forward on the original HIB. And that would be something that would force you to reconsider, do we need to reach a different conclusion based on this new witness? Of course, if there is a new incident, that starts a new investigation, and the process starts all over with that new incident.
Now, that's where so if there's an appeal to the appeal, and then there's no new information being presented, that's when the next level of appeal goes to the commissioner?
Yes. And that's where, if there's no new information, you can appropriately say, there's no need for another hearing. You're just disagreeing with the result.
Yeah.
There's not some new piece of information you're asking us to look at. So, just like we talked about the ethics rules, somebody brings a complaint about a bullying incident. If it comes to you, you refer it back to the superintendent. Superintendent makes sure it goes through the channels. Oops. Trying to get this to cooperate.
I have a question actually on the information gathering piece during the appeal.
Yes.
So if more information is needed following the appeal because there's questions that are raised and we discuss those in closed session, I would assume that administration should be sort of the filter for, or should be tasked with gathering that information. Would it be appropriate to rice an employee and bring them in to speak to the board collectively, or is that something that should be more handled by administration than brought back and presented?
Typically, what you want to do is gather as much information as you can as an administrative team.
Yeah.
And if there are new witnesses, new social media posts, new video you didn't know about before, assessing that and then bringing that back to the board once you've kind of done that. I think that's the best process to follow there, most efficient process.
That's been our process. I just want to make sure that we're doing
There's
it.
one question on that, and not that you would ever do this. The filter of information, there's new information down, how much control of the filtering information does the administration have in presenting it to the board?
Well, you have a right to know. What's the new information? Is there a new witness?
Well, if they don't bring it to us, we don't know there's no information.
Well, but I'm saying they should bring it to you efficiently, do the additional investigation as an administrative team, and then if there is new information, it has to be brought to you. Right? So that's the key. If there is new information that you didn't have before, that does require the district to look again at the result that was reached and reopen the investigation.
So raw and unfiltered.
Well, yes, but I wouldn't say just raw and unfiltered. That's not so helpful to you, right? Because part of what you're relying on is the administrative team to assess the credibility of that information, to see if it can be corroborated. So that's not something that you can do to start doing the investigation. You have the right to know what the raw information was, but it's much more helpful for you to know whether it is credible information and why or why not.
And I think to speak to Mr. Lippi's point, if there was a concern in them holding me accountable or holding us accountable collectively, would
So let's say that separately from the board, someone, a member of the community goes to a board member and, you know, presents them with information they feel like they should have had from me. How would they handle that?
So I think the way that would be handled is for that board member to go back to you
Yeah.
and say, this is what I was told from a community member, and either it is new information or it's perhaps something that wasn't explained as clearly as it could have been.
Yeah.
So it's one of those two things, right? And then the board has a right to know the new information or the clarification on the information we already have. Remember, what you're getting by necessity is a summary, right? There could be 20 witnesses, they all could have had elaborate statements, and it's not possible to hear everything that's said by every person. So it's possible that it didn't make the summary, but asking the question helps you figure that out. Right? So you do want to make sure you meet your timelines. One thing I always say to a district is, even if you have a huge issue, you know, with social media, you could have an incident where there are 50 students who made comments they shouldn't have made on social media, and they all might engage in cyberbullying. You probably won't be finished with that investigation in 10 school days. So the district is not violating state law if it takes longer to do an investigation, but what you really want to do is always submit a report. So 10 days to investigate, 2 more days to write a report. The report might say we're not done yet. And here's the reason why. There are 100 people to interview, or a key witness has been out sick for the last 2 weeks. But you know, you should be apprised that there is an investigation. This is the reason it's not yet finished at that point in time. Once the investigation is finished, it's reported to you at the next board meeting. So of course, there's a 2-meeting process for you at a minimum. 1 meeting where you learn about the outcome, and then a subsequent meeting where you vote. Okay? In the meantime, the parent might ask for a hearing. Or they might wait until after you vote and still be within your 60 days to ask for a hearing. Parents ask for a hearing, you have that hearing, and then if it is before your next board meeting, you vote at the next board meeting. Parents, of course, can appeal. They can go to the commissioner. They have 90 days to appeal your decision.
Is there a responsibility on the administration part to explain to parents they have 60 days, 90 days? Or is that something that they should?
It's a good practice. It's not. There's no specific mandate that I recall that, about the 60-day piece.
I believe we may have it in policy. It
I
is
would.
part of our practice for sure. It's in the letter, but I think that that's policy driven. We have a pretty extensive policy on this, so I believe the Strauss Esme policy, so it's probably not unique to us,
Yeah.
does dictate that we communicate that. I'm not 100% certain of that, but I can tell you with 100% certainty that it is our practice.
So it's certainly, I always urge districts, be transparent, make sure parents know their rights. Right? It builds trust when folks, just like we do in special education, explaining to parents their rights, I think is really important. All right, I'll jump ahead to this one. Summer conduct. Something happens over the summer and school district finds out about it in September. It's still something that could be bullied. It's less likely, right? Something happens in July. Time helps with these issues, but it still could be causing substantial disruption in September. So it's important to understand those are still issues. If somebody is alleging bullying, that would have to be investigated. Now, technically, you have more time. The students are not in summer school. The alleged incident happened over the summer. The district would have the first 10 days of the next school year to finish the investigation. But I do urge districts always try to do it sooner. Right? It's harder because maybe nobody cooperates, they don't come in, but I would attempt to do the investigations if possible. Substantial disruption, It's not a simple question, but these are some of the common sense things that I always urge districts to think about if you're trying to figure out, was there substantial disruption? Is the student missing school? Are they missing class? Are they not doing well academically? Did they stop participating in sports? Are they no longer hanging out with their friends? Are they behaving differently and getting in trouble themselves where they never did before? Are they changing their routine? On the other hand, are they just getting along just fine with the other student? And there's no evidence that there's any fear, that there's any disruption. So those are sort of the common sense things you want to look for to figure out, was there substantial disruption? And there's a few more, but you sort of get the idea. You're trying to get a sense of, is there a major change from baseline? AI complicates things, of course, artificial intelligence. We have seen wonderful uses of artificial intelligence and some horrific uses of artificial intelligence. So there was another New Jersey school district that got national attention because a group of high school boys took the photographs of female students from, I think it was from the yearbook, used those photographs and created fake sexually explicit images of those female students and disseminated them throughout the school. Horrific potential crimes involved there, although I wish our criminal laws were clearer on that issue, but also sexual harassment, which is a form of harassment, intimidation, or bullying. So some people across the country have tried to say, well, you can't punish somebody if the image isn't real. The harm is real. And the impression that the image is real is enough because of the harm you're causing for students. So we are seeing, unfortunately, some of those examples. U.S. Department of Justice has said they are looking at that the same as if the images were real, as far as analyzing it for potential crimes. I think New Jersey is doing the same. We'll see how our courts treat it, but I think that is the correct legal interpretation. New Jersey is putting out more guidance. The department put out a guidance memo last June. Since then, they have a website that has a lot of good resources. I think it's really useful. Have you adopted a policy yet on AI?
We have the policy from the policy alert through Strauss-Esme.
Okay.
We are waiting until, so the policy is basically dictating that you as a district have an AI plan. So we are in the process of developing our plan before we adopt policy so that we know that they appropriately align. But it's been a discussion at our committee level, including last week, and our hope is to make sure that we're kind of ready to go, roll it out all at once. But we will have something in place within the next month or two before the year's over.
I think it's wonderful and very complicated. You know, I hate to say it, but AI deepfakes are getting better and better. So that does make investigations more difficult. You might have something that looks like a very credible video or audio that is not actually authentic. So it becomes more important than ever to corroborate evidence, to try to look for multiple sources. There was a case recently where a student used AI to create a fake audio of a principal saying horrific things, and it took the principal a while to prove that it was AI. And the principal hadn't actually said those things. Very, very scary. Oops. The law was changed in 2021. There is heightened scrutiny if the district allows for preliminary determinations. Do you have that in your policy, the option for preliminary determinations?
We do. I think our principals use it relatively sparingly just because it would need to be something relatively obvious in order for them to be willing to say that we don't need to be investigating.
So it is, it's a good option. I think it's a good common sense thing. It's not mandated, but sometimes you'll have an allegation of bullying, but there is no alleged characteristic. By definition, without a characteristic, it can't be bullying. Sometimes there's an allegation of bullying, but both students have already said they were mutually engaging in conflict back and forth. And if you read what they have both already admitted to and said, by definition, they've just described a conflict and not bullying. So I think it's a good common sense option, but it has to be used appropriately. Now, New Jersey does say if you use that option, has to get to the superintendent, same day, so you know it right away. Twice a year, you need to know how many times that option is used. Twice a year, it's reported to the state of New Jersey. And parents, of course, have a right to know that the option was used as opposed to an investigation. And of course, parents, if they disagree, they can come to you with that issue too. Well, I think there should have been an investigation. So parents always have those rights. If you have a student who has a third confirmed bullying case, the district does have to have an intervention plan for that student. So,
With the same victim?
no. No, it doesn't have to be the same victim, but if it's the same aggressor 3 times, even if it's 3 different victims, the district now needs an intervention plan for that aggressor. It's, the only limitation is, did the 3 incidents happen in your district? Or if there were 1 or 2 in a prior district, that doesn't count for this mandate.
But it's cumulative over the years.
Cumulative over the years. Now, this is interesting. This is the one time today where I will point out our analysis differs from the New Jersey Department of Ed. So take it for what it's worth. But if you read the statute itself, it says whenever you get to 3 confirmed incidents, for some reason, the Department of Ed guidance says it has to be 3 incidents in 1 year. The law doesn't say that anywhere. It just says once you get to 3 confirmed incidents, there has to be a plan. So, you know, we urge districts to have a plan. It never hurts to have one.
One of the primary reasons, and I know we've discussed this as a board because we just, in the past few months, we've updated the revised preliminary decision. But the main reason that we did that was because if an investigation is done, even if it is unfounded, you're still attaching a student ID number to your report related to that. So I think the idea was to protect against, if something was completely fabricated, we would want to rule out even investigating that so that you're not attaching something to a student ID number in the state reporting system. But if there's any question in the gray area, like if it's in the gray area at all, you know, we encourage the principals to investigate just to be certain that there's not more to it.
That makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, when in doubt, investigate. But I think if you have something that clearly doesn't meet that definition, it would make a lot of sense. So a few examples from case law that we can learn from. Here was a case where you had a lunch aide who allegedly bullied a student. Remember, the aggressor could be a staff member too. It turns out this was found not to be bullying because it was just a mean lunch aide, and they couldn't figure out any reason that the lunch aide was targeting that particular student. And that's frustrating, but you need a characteristic. You need some motivating factor. So again, I don't know, but I assume the district took other action against the lunch aide. You shouldn't be mean to kids, even if it's not bullying. But it didn't meet the HIV definition. This was an interesting case where you had a non-tenured teacher who felt like he was being treated unfairly because he filed too many bullying complaints. So he thought that the district decided to let him go because he was driving them crazy with bullying allegations. And a court said, all right, you have a right to try to make your case. I don't know what the real facts are, but I can tell you that if you look at what was reported by the court, it certainly seems like we have a teacher who's having a hard time with classroom management. Non-tenured teacher submitted over 40 bullying complaints in less than 2 months. That would suggest to me somebody who's having a hard time managing their classroom. But the person also was upset that a student had said, well, I'm going to get my uncle's gun. That was reported to the district. The teacher was upset that that student was not expelled or was not suspended for months on end and allowed to come back. So the teacher concluded the district hadn't done anything. That same, 2 weeks later, that same teacher observed another incident involving that students. Teacher breaks up an altercation between that student and another student, but the district gathered evidence that he used excessive force. So this non-tenured teacher who was struggling with classroom management using excessive force was let go and sued and said, I think I'm being let go because I'm complaining too much about bullying. The court said he has a right to make his case. So obviously we can't retaliate against staff members who are in good faith reporting what they think is bullying. I suspect that there's a good chance that this is a teacher struggling with classroom management without knowing for sure. Some other case law to learn from: kids can be endlessly creative. So I guess that's glass half full, right? So there was a case where a student knew that another student had a peanut allergy. So ate a bunch of peanuts while at lunch and then started grabbing the student's belongings and touching the student. The student obviously became very upset, could have become very ill, didn't get seriously ill. That was found to be bullying. What was the characteristic? Nut allergy. The student was targeted because he had an allergy, and the other student thought it would be fun. There was a case years ago when the law first came out. 4th grader had come into school who had lice. Another student says to the class, you know, she has lice, it's her fault that we're all getting lice. Bullying complaint was filed. The parent says, this can't be bullying. I raised my child to tell the truth. And how can she be in trouble for bullying when she was just telling the truth? Commissioner said by 4th grade, you should know that it's going to be really embarrassing when you out the student who has lice and sort of make fun of her for having lice. So truth is not always a defense. Not every truth has to be spoken. And that was still found to be bullying. We did have a case involving gender identity. A couple of cases we've had involving gender identity. This one struck me because it was very young students, 2nd grade. So you had a student who had transitioned, had previously been known to classmates as a boy, had transitioned, was now communicating to everyone as a girl. That can be really confusing. So the 2nd graders were counseled on this issue. The parent allowed them to be educated. And the students were all fine except for one student who kept saying, you know, stop pretending you're a girl, and was saying really hurtful things. The district tried to counsel that student individually multiple times. The behavior continued. They ultimately concluded it was bullying. I think they did it the right way because they didn't jump to bully. They counseled again, they counseled again. But ultimately, the commissioner said, even at 2nd grade, you should eventually understand what you're saying is causing harm. Okay? So you do consider the age of a student when you're considering whether they should have known what they're saying is causing harm. And I think the district ultimately did that here. Some additional case law. There was a case where a parent was upset that her child was sitting alone. They were on a flight to this national cheerleading competition, and this one student was all by herself, and the rest of the team wasn't sitting with her. And she got really upset, and she told her mother about this. Mother files a bullying complaint. My child is being bullied. She's being ostracized and isolated. The commissioner looked at it and said, basically, we can't force kids to be friends. Right? That's not bullying. So certainly it's still something the district should help with. We want to help students make connections, but just because students aren't actively socializing doesn't mean that they're bullied. Another case involving AI, we had a case where a student tried to be clever and was able to get artificial intelligence to use the N-word. The student didn't directly use the N-word, but by the prompting that the student did, got AI to use that word. and the student tried to say, well, I didn't do it. It was AI. School district said, you were trying to have this result, you had the result, you did it. Right, so we'll see more and more cases like this where students try to say, it wasn't me, it was artificial intelligence. I mentioned this third one. This was one that sort of started as a typical conflict between two students about athletic ability, but then one student significantly changed the scenario by making anti-Semitic comments. So at that point, what had been a typical conflict turned into bullying. Another case involved inappropriate touching of a student. This was an interesting case, the Jefferson Township one. You had a student who had a disability who didn't understand boundaries, and the district did conclude that it was part of the disability, and the student, they were working on it, but the student still sometimes had inappropriate touching. Even though it was a manifestation of the disability, it was still bullying. And that's an important case to recognize. What the state of New Jersey has said is that if the behavior meets the definition, you're looking through the eyes of the victim and what they're perceiving. The victim perceived that she was being touched inappropriately because she's female. And that was a reasonable perception, even though the reality was it was because of the student's disability and the student not understanding appropriate versus inappropriate touching. So still hid. Of course, it changes the way you respond. A suspension probably wouldn't do much to change behavior, right? So you think about different responses so that students can understand why that's not appropriate.
When you talk about perception of the victim, because this is something that comes up, sometimes you'll have a difference between the perception of the parent of the alleged victim
Yes.
and the perception of the victim that you're speaking with, or the alleged victim that you're speaking with. And I think where it gets tricky, if it's middle school, high school, where you can reasonably make the determination that the alleged victim is speaking with an understanding of the situation and that you can take their viewpoint into perspective, it's a lot easier to say, well, I understand that mom feels this way, but clearly that's not what we're seeing with the student. The younger you go, the harder that is to do. If it's a kindergartner and you have a parent saying, well, based on what they're saying at the dinner table when they come home, this is what's going on with my child, even though your investigation or your interviews are not showing that. How do you
Great question,
distinguish?
right? So what a student tells you who's an alleged victim, we take very seriously, but it's not the entire picture. The student might say, I'm fine, this didn't bother me. But you talk to the teacher, you talk to the parent, the student is crying, their demeanor has changed. So what you're looking for is a change from baseline behavior. One way to find that out is to talk to the student directly, but you also can get that from other sources. And that's true for any student. It could be an older student too. Typically, if it's an older student, it's a student who just doesn't want to tell you that they've been bullied. Younger student might not have the language, might not be able to express it quite as clearly.
Or understand as much what the...
Or understand what's happening, but you are looking for actual impact. So what you described is different from the parent who's furious and the student who's not impacted. We see that too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So trying to tell the difference between those two is really important. So we saw a case involving weight. We've seen a number of those. This was a student who created a sheet meme on social media targeting another student because of weight and appearance. That was bullying. This last one surprised me. There was a student who had come to school and had a Nerf gun. Not okay, right? So the student was disciplined for that. Other students found out that the student had brought this fake gun to school, and they started calling the student shooter. District parents filed a bullying complaint. Commissioner said it was not bullying. I will confess I'm having a hard time understanding the commissioner's thought process on this one particular case. It seems to me it's a characteristic or a perceived characteristic. The commissioner, I think, was saying that everybody understood that they didn't really think the student was a shooter. That's the best I can understand the commissioner's thinking on that one. But don't ask me to fully explain that thinking. I'll confess, it's the one case I've had a hard time understanding. The commissioner did say that there was no real characteristic involved, and if the students had made fun of the other student for a mental disability, that would have been different. If the students had truly believed the student was a shooter, that would have been different. Hard time I have with that one, but
Skip it.
yeah. I figured I have to give you one case I can't explain. Last thing I'll point out, if I can go back one slide. Well, it might not let me go back, but I gave you a few cases where there was no intent, but there was still voting. So keep that in mind, right? It's not about the intent of the aggressor, it's about the impact on the victim and the perception of the victim, as long as it's reasonable.
The perception is the key, right?
Perception is the key. Yeah. Now, of course, some students might be hypersensitive and could perceive that they are being targets when it's not a reasonable perception. That is the other piece to that puzzle. Questions that?
I have a question. Going back to the ethics portion of the presentation, a lot of us on the board are parents or grandparents within the district, and I'm just wondering where that line is, because I feel like it sometimes gets blurred. And I know you touched on the discipline aspect of it, but what about like volunteerism, being in the schools, you know, being part of the book fair, or even like giving my kids' teachers holiday gifts? Like, how does that play in?
So you always want to go back to, are you doing something that is not okay for other parents to do? Mm-hmm. Right? So if it's a common practice that you might have parents give a small token to a staff member, some sort of a gift, and you're not doing something out of the ordinary, I wouldn't see an ethics issue there. You're giving, the teacher gave your child an A, a gold watch. It starts to look more suspicious.
So it's like a de minimis sort of a...
I think that's right. Yes. De minimis and consistent.
Okay.
In previous ethics presentations, we were told that if you are participating as a volunteer at an event, don't handle money, because that could cause impropriety. So
that's certainly a good practice. If you start handling funds, the last thing you want is anything that puts you in a position where somebody could say you did something inappropriate.
What about like joining the PTA, or we have a newly formed Ed Foundation, right? Joining these organizations where we then may have to vote on something regarding them.
So you need to be careful, right? Because you could put yourself in a position where you have to recuse yourself from any votes or any real discussion of that issue, because it could at least create the perception of some sort of an unwarranted advantage to the organization that you're sympathetic to and part of. So it doesn't mean you can't do it, but you need to be really diligent.
So like if all 9 of us joined our newly formed education foundation, then we literally couldn't vote on any donation they gave us.
Well, there is a separate legal principle called the doctrine of necessity, which you would probably invoke at that point, right? Because you have to be able to act as a district.
But is it in those cases where these are different groups that help the Board of Ed itself, is it better to have like a liaison like we do with Parks and Rec, rather than being, because like I'm on the Municipal Alliance as a liaison, but I have no voting right there.
The liaison role is a much...
Right, that's what I'm...
She's there as a board member,
not
as opposed to
as
a member of the Municipal Alliance.
So wouldn't it be better to have like a liaison to that group rather than, even though you want to be a member or you support their cause, it kind of takes the questionability out of when you vote on something, because...
Yes.
they're giving money to the schools, you know?
It's a much cleaner approach to the issue. And it, goes sort of with your mission of promoting community engagement, and being, liaison to various community groups like that is a better approach than being a member of that group, which you can do, but then you have to be really diligent about recusal.
So I think that example can be relatively straightforward. I think a PTA might be a little different because now your willingness and desire to be involved in some of the things going on at the school becomes challenged because it's hard to be an active parent in that capacity if you can't vote on the things that they're doing here. I guess what I would be curious to hear is if you're not involved, if you're a member of the organization and you're volunteering at events and you're doing things in that realm, but you're not involved in the active decision-making of those separate organizations, does that in any way impact your ability to vote on those things?
Interesting question, right? I mean, to the extent that you're just volunteering and not involved in decision-making, probably you have more leeway as a board member to still be able to vote. If there's a close call, I would try to be proactive and look at things like advisory opinions, right? Just to be on the safe side with something like that. So, certainly you have the right to volunteer, but part of the issue you want to think about is perception. Is there even a perception that this group is being treated differently?
Because you're part of it.
Because you're part of it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right, that's where the allegation comes of an unwarranted advantage.
So if one grammar school gets more attention from the board because a member is on that PTA versus one across town.
Yes, that's where it becomes an issue. You always want to think unwarranted advantages, that's what we want to avoid. Or the perception of unwarranted advantages, which you then have to try to explain away.
Which is also probably a more common issue for us to face, right? Because I think that's people can have those concerns even if there's nothing to them at all, and even if every member of this board is behaving as appropriately as they can, as transparently as they can, doesn't mean that it's going to be perceived that way by everybody.
That's right, and that there's no easy way to fix that, but just being transparent and letting the public understand, we are treating all of our schools equally and fairly, and giving examples of that and getting folks to see the reality of the situation goes a long way. Other questions? I hope this was helpful.
Very much so.
I appreciate, I don't know that everyone in the community always understands how much time you put in as board members. Even though it was 30 years ago, I remember the meetings that ended at midnight or 1 in the morning. So I appreciate how hard.
I try to forget them.
Yes.
We voted not to.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nash. And next on the agenda is any amendments to the agenda, Dr. Kitchen?
So there is one change which you'll see under number 11, amendments. So with our shift to board docs, what you can expect is the agenda as presented to you will always be accurate because any changes will be in there live before you're voting. But just in case you viewed the agenda Friday when it went live and didn't follow up after that until we're sitting here tonight, you want to know what changes might be there because it might be harder to spot, especially in a large agenda. So the way we've built it out is we have put in that number 11 section, amendments to the agenda, so you can view exactly what those amendments are, and you'll know what the changes are. The other thing that you'll see is there is also going to be a section in there for hand carries, and that way it's sort of clearly showing you if something has been added after the fact. That will live there all the time, whether it's got something in it or not, so that something could be added. You'll know that there are no hand carries if that section is empty when we get to it. So just so you're aware, that's how that's being built out. The other thing that you will notice, and it may not actually be on the agenda for this evening, but you'll notice in our regular session is when we're bringing certain things forward. Well, we have some conflicted board members on certain routine items where we know that they're conflicted. And so in the past, our agendas, paper agendas, have had individual motions broken out. So Mr. Lippy, you're regularly carrying 6 different times, you're making motions to pass things through. For those routine items, what you're going to see is recommended abstentions based on conflicts that we know exist. Those will not be the only items that you may need to abstain from, but they're ones that we know you routinely would abstain from. The purpose of that is it allows us to vote with carrying them as a large block, and you'd be voting with the recommended abstentions. However, if there's additional items that you would individually choose to abstain from, it won't be built into the agenda that everything you would want to abstain from would be on there. It would still be your responsibility to make sure you're appropriately taking action based on the items, but the routine ones are there. So I think that is hopefully helpful in efficiently getting through the agenda.
So when you're asking for our vote, we would just say yes.
So you could say
right?
yes with abstentions, although I believe in all likelihood when we get to sections like that, and I don't want to speak for you, but I think the question might be posed to you with those abstentions. But I think that if for whatever reason we'll get used to this obviously with a new procedure, but I think you could easily say yes with abstentions. And I think that will just clean things up, and it still everything kind of carries at once, and it's obvious. So we're looking to make it as efficient as we can. So
I thank you for bringing us out of the 1900s.
Collective effort.
All right, thank you, Dr. Kitchen. Okay, so can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I won't draw our attention to all those things every time. I'm doing it here this time, so we're speaking on it, but then going forward, you kind of just know.
And so 13, special action, there are no hand carries, so we can skip that one. 13.1 and 13.2. And also 14, special action, we do have that. So Mrs. Ricano, can you move 14.1?
Is that how we do it? 14.
Through 14.11.
I move under personnel, items 14.1 through 14.11.
Second.
Second.
Yeah.
Ms. Marquardt said it.
Any discussion? Yes, Mrs. Rocano?
Under 14.5, I just want to commend the administration for finding these candidates. I know it's been a long go, and to find a qualified teacher mid-year, I think it's really pulling a needle out of a haystack. So, great job.
Any other discussion?
Move to close? Or,
No, it
no?
was seconded.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I'd do that.
You just have to call the roll.
Yeah, so no, I thought you were reaching for your mic, Mrs. Van Dyke.
Oh, I'm
that's why.
sorry.
No, that's
I was
okay.
looking at the light.
Okay, roll call.
Look on.
Mr. Schultz?
Okay.
Mr. Sotovich,
Yes.
Mr. Lippy,
Yes.
Mrs. Lockwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Marquardt?
Yes.
Mrs. Rocano?
Yes.
Mrs. Van Dyke?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Lippe, can you move 15.1 through 15.3?
I'd like to move 15.1 through 15.3.
Second.
Any discussion?
Oh,
15.4?
yeah, sorry.
There, 15.4?
That's roll call.
Yeah, question.
Oh, I see.
15.3, the increased expense in the board docs. This is the expansions for the staffs and administrators.
So in Friday's update to you, that was what I was discussing there, where there's a couple of features that it will expand for us that I think are going to be really, really useful for the way that we use it. Until we got kind of into board docs, we didn't fully realize that, but it allows us to separate governing bodies. So for example, we can, like the same way we're logging into view our routine agenda, we can set up our committees in a way that adjusts access. So if you remember during committee, we were talking about, what we can put forward for you to view. So when we're creating a public agenda, there's a lot more hands in the pot for something like that than there would be at the individual committee level. So we can change how we assign sort of different governing bodies within those individual committees. I think that is really helpful. And then one of the big pieces is we think it really cleans up our way that we can use it for the executive or for the confidential updates. Instead of it existing in that sort of library piece, we can create a entity within board docs that allows us to do the updates that way, and it protects those rights. I think it protects us more appropriately for any Oprah violations or anything like, or any Oprah issues. So we believe it's going to be a better way for us to function just because of the functionality that it gives us. We can sort of create any body that we want to within there and assign the appropriate rights. Whereas if we only operate with the current setup, the rights are assigned one time, and then anybody who has access can view it, can view anything on that level. So for example, people who have editable access to our primary agenda to put motions forward to the board office would then theoretically be able to view things that are in that executive summary to all of you as board members. So we'd like to protect some of those things. I think without it, it would require us to take certain elements out of board docs and handle them differently. This allows us to keep everything in one place.
So the heated seat option is nice.
It is. It's something that we weren't really aware of until we were using it. If we were aware, we would have brought it forward right out of the gate. The reality is, I know we discussed this when we first put everything forward. We were surprised at the initial price being as low as it was, and then we're like, oh well, there's more options that we may have not realized we didn't have. So it kind of puts us right where we expected to be in the first place, but not until we actually saw it did we know that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please, Mr. Schultz?
Mr. Sotovich?
Yes.
Mr. Lippy?
Yes.
Mrs. Lockwood?
Yes.
Mrs. Marquardt?
Yes.
Mrs. Rocano?
Yes.
Mrs. Van Dyke?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino?
Yes.
Okay, 16 and 17, both are hand carries for personnel and operations and finance. We don't have any hand carries for those, so we can skip to 18. Education, Mr. Sitovich.
The following items are for discussion. Any discussion?
We'll go to 18.
Yeah, 18.1 through 18.9. Any discussion? Yes, Mrs. Rocano?
I'm really excited to see the grant opportunity to build out the esports industry career exploration. I think a lot of, we saw this at school boards, and I'm really excited to bring this program to a population of kids who I think are sometimes underrepresented in our schools, so.
Yeah, agree with that. Dan, I don't know if you had anything to do with this, but we talked about this, remember, 6 years ago, right?
You're improving my ability to fill it out.
Mr. Novak deserves a ton of credit for bringing all this forward and putting in the legwork to bringing people out. We've done a couple of walkthroughs now, so he's put a lot of effort into this. So, it's obviously there's more work to be done, but tons of credit to Mr. Novak, but also to our board members that were down at school boards to begin this discussion, because I think we were kind of down there together when we first saw this and got a little bit of a greater understanding of what it was. And I think calling it esports honestly doesn't do it justice. It's so much more than that, and that's what we got to see. And I don't think any of us fully appreciated that until we had those conversations, and then obviously until Mr. Novak brought the individuals here to kind of walk through. And we learned a lot just during the walkthroughs and listening to dialogue between some of these individuals and some of our staff members. Some of the conversation was going over our head, but it was really enlightening. So credit to everybody for the efforts into it, and thank you all.
And similar to the computer science grant, just the process of all these investigations and looking at the things that we have, the things that we can add, we see opportunity to add esports in a capacity with or without winning this grant. Similar to the cybersecurity and the computer science grant, we created a plan that we could do even if we didn't win the grant, but we ended up winning the computer science grant. That's really boosted our ability to take it to the next level, and I see opportunity here. This particular grant is for middle school. So it's written for 5th through 8th grade students, and that's the target audience for this grant recipient. So we're excited about it. Great team at Macapan, working with admin and teachers to kind of brainstorm out all the things that we could do with it. We have a plan that we're going to move on in the short term to get it going, with or without winning this grant. Winning this grant would just be able to take our 5-year plan and make it a 1-year plan.
Hey, again, I know you've been talking about this for 5 years, so this is really good, because I don't think that, right, we realize how huge the quote-unquote esports is. I mean, they fill arenas with these things.
I want to thank Dan, because when we were down at workshop, it's not something I even understood until we went and I got the idea. When we sat there, we were so excited about what we were seeing, and you saw that we had so much in place that we could be able to move with this even without the grant. But I commend you for getting the grant, because I think we're going to see a lot of students that are going to be excited once they see what we're going to do. So I thank you, and I think we all enjoyed the presentation and showed us something new that we can maybe light a fire for and keep our kids wanting to be here.
There's a lot of exciting things in development right now, and I'll just tease it there. We're going to do a presentation in February for some really exciting things for our middle school and high school. So this is just one more piece for that.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, Mrs. Ricano, personnel.
You don't vote?
Nope, we don't vote, it's just a workshop.
Workshop, sorry.
So this is
You're just
19, right?
19, you're just moving.
I just open it up for discussion.
Yep,
right?
anticipated action for the budget meeting next week.
Yep. So I move items under 19 through 1919 up for discussion.
Any discussion?
Here.
Yes, Mr. Lepek?
Seeing Karen McCourt retiring, one of my kids' first teachers at Ashwa, and she made such a difference in her life, so I just want to thank her for that. That's all.
Yeah, that was, so we're not voting on this obviously tonight, so I was going to speak to it next week, but combined, those two retirees have, Mrs. McCourt and Mrs. Nebeker have about 75 years in this district together.
combined, so quite a lot.
We should miss their first day when they're retiring.
That's crazy. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, so we can go on to operations and finance. Mr. Lippert?
We're, again, discussion, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, for 20 through 20.7.
Yep. Any discussion? No? Okay, seeing none. We can go on to Mrs. McQuarrie for policy.
Items 21.1 through 21.4 for discussion.
Any discussion? Okay.
I have a question just about policy and board docs. So are we going to review policy in board docs now? Yes.
Looks like it.
Right?
I don't know that I understand the question.
So like, you know how we would get like the yellow papers that had like the old policy and like things crossed out? It's in.
Like when you go in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm.
So, yeah, so we, yes, we will be doing it that way. In our committee meeting last week, it was a little clunkier as we were trying to figure out how we wanted to do it. But we had a discussion about what we wanted to look like going forward. So we'll be going through there. And then again, back to the conversation about the change in board docs price and some of the added features. That will tweak a little bit what those committees look like, but it'll actually make it much easier for us to put all that information in there, and including the information that helps to drive the discussion from my side of things, will be able to be in there as well.
Great.
So, if it's on there, the policy that we're reviewing, is there going to be like that highlighted, will it be like highlighted what we're changing?
The edits?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be in, that will be in the committee agendas and then shared out in the committee notes so that we can view exactly what it is that we're changing, and then, obviously the notes on the discussion as well. So we want to make sure that you can see exactly what it is that you're voting on, not just the policy as it is presented, but what did change. And then again, like I get information shared with me that I can use to drive the conversation about the rationale for some of those things, which will be brought to the committee.
Okay. Any other discussion? Yes, Mr. Lippert?
Under the, where are we, discussion policy, the new, I guess this is second reading, I think, policy, spectator code for his class. We're again in between school events. I want to pull a hip on you. I started on my wife, okay? In order to keep you tangled up here. Are we going to have this posted? And I know it's not a policy yet, it's here, but is the procedure in other districts I've seen where they have it posted at the fields and this?
Yes, so.
And is it part of the package for all sports, parents,
It will be. So just to sort of make sure everybody's on the same page as far as how we got to where we got. If you remember a few months back, I was at a seminar that was put on by Strauss Esme where they discussed the fact that during this school year, there would be a requirement to adopt a policy. So I brought that back, we discussed it, we were like, okay, that's great, we want to get the ball rolling on this, we think this is something that's really important. And if you remember a couple of months ago, there was a policy that had been adopted through school boards, but Strauss Esme had not yet put their recommendation forward. So we made the decision collectively to adopt the policy immediately, knowing that we would replace it with the Strauss-Esme version, and then coincidentally, right after we finished our second reading was when the Strauss-Esme version came out. If you looked at the two, you probably saw they're very similar. There's almost no changes but from one to the other. And a couple of the options obviously in our policy committee tasked me with making sure that it sort of aligned with what we had adopted previously, so that we could just in a single reading adopt the new policy, not go through two readings, and then abolish the other one at the same time. So it's really a replacement of a policy that is nearly identical to it. It's just the Strauss-Esme version, because we didn't have the Strauss-Esme version when we decided to push one forward. So, but yes, as per our discussion, we want to make sure this is posted. We want to make sure the information is available. So, so it will be shared out. We are. After our site assessments that we were doing, there were some signage needs that we're looking to address. So as we're purchasing signage for a variety of reasons, that will be one of the things that's looked at as well, making sure things are appropriately posted at our sporting events and facilities, and we go from there.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, so we can go to old business. Any old business?
Move to close old business. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? New business? Any new business?
Move to close new business.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, public comment. Is there anyone in the public wanting to speak? Public comment, this could be about agenda or non-agenda items.
Move to close public comments.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we have no need for an executive session. So, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.